Be one family. Welcome to Blacklogic. One of the most beautiful and honorable things that a black man can ever do is marry a black woman, is building a black family. And I think that this has been lost through so many means. Now, of course, you have the freedom, you have the right to marry anyone you want to marry with no preference to their race, their gender, and their personal beliefs. But in my opinion, I believe the most honorable thing for a black man, because there's not quite, there's very few of us at a certain level where we are able to marry. And what I mean by that is, whether it be the mental capacity or stability and or on a monetary value. And we have to think of these things as though we are an endangered species when it comes to black men. But could black women be the answers? See, from a historical significance, black families have been systematically torn apart throughout history, and rebuilding them is a way to reclaim power and show our resiliency. When we think about economic empowerment, by marrying and building families, black men and women can pool their resources together, how meager or how much it may be. Whether the black woman makes more and the black man makes less, or vice versa, we can still create what we like to coin generational wealth. Okay. And generational wealth comes in many different forms and many different ways, and support each other's economic advancement. Strong black families contribute to the overall stability and prosperity of our community, providing a solid foundation for our children and for future generations. Within the black community, it helps us preserve and celebrate the rich culture that a lot of people think that we don't have, in which we do, to celebrate the rich culture and heritage and our traditions. Now, while acknowledging our beautiful black women, they have made significant strides in education and as well as home ownership. It's important to emphasize that these achievements should not hinder the pursuit of meaningful relationship within the black community. This is where we fall short. During the age of Kevin Samuels, during the age of Fresh and Fit, we have seen so many divisive conversation, whether it be here in America, there in Africa, the Caribbean, and the UK. And the division has been dividing black men and women at a very, very high rate. We have the black women speaking down to the black men. We have the black men speaking down to the black women. But the one thing that we have yet to hear are the solutions. Because believe it or not, even though black men were the first to step out on a relationship and start dating outside their race, black women are right behind them. And that is because that the system, and whatever the system that you account for it to be, has been pushing an agenda to further separate the black man from the black woman. And believe it or not, family, when we're so separated, we're so divisive, we're so entwined with one another, what tends to happen is that we lose power as a race. We lose power as a people. Because believe it or not, majority of black women are dating and marrying black men. Majority of black men are dating and marrying black women, but at a very decreased rate, more so than it was quite some time ago. Because when we look at the 1950s, I know this is such a long time ago for a lot of us. I wasn't even born myself, but it stated that 64% of black men, 14 and older, were married to black women. Okay, of course, the rate for white people are significantly higher because of the population rate. And then we moved to 1960, that decreased by 3%. Now, I want you to stay with me because there's a cause. Again, everyone is looking at today. Why aren't black men on their grind? Why aren't black men in business? Why aren't black men, taking up skills and making a significant amount of money? Because the men that women want, the men that black women want, do not exist at the rate and at the percentage they want them to exist. It's just not their family. For the most part, black women outnumber black men 2-1. Black women outnumber black men 2-1. And then there's the significant instances in history in present time that farly decreased the number of black available men. Yeah, we can factor in Pookin, Ray Ray, and Tyrone. We can do all those things. We can factor in all those sorts of people. But let me push one thing to you of how, on an intellectual level, how people are continuing to push this narrative that black women should date far outside their race. Even though I digress. Let me just go to the video.
We have more black women, right, graduating from college, 2-1 to black men. You throw in incarceration rates, you throw in the unemployment rates, and you're saying there's just not enough black men.
So it was something very significant. As soon as he said, I'm going to start this over for you guys who didn't hear it, he stated that black women are graduating college at a rate 2-1 to black men. But then he also threw in mass incarceration. And I think we throw that term around and we don't really define it. We don't really understand mass incarceration and what occurred during mass incarceration. Mass incarceration started in 1970 and it really didn't end until 2000. And we understand that Joe Biden is the senator when he was in Delaware that created the legislation and was signed by Bill Clinton that incarcerated a very high significant number of black men. Listen in.
More black women, right, graduating from college, 2-1 to black men. You throw in incarceration rates, you throw in the unemployment rates, and you're saying there's just not enough black men.
Well, there are not enough black men for all of the college-educated black women in particular that have the type of husbands that they want to have.
The type that they want to have. Now, I put this out, and we had this conversation yesterday, and a lot of people were chiming in, and I decided to ask for questions from viewers. And one of the questions, simply put, is, do black women deserve better than what black men have to offer? That seems like a very heavy question there, but is that essentially what it is? Do we not measure up to the quality of black women right now?
That's really a great way to put it. And I will admit that I usually think about it from the other perspective, which is that is it fair to ask black women to sacrifice their own happiness on the altar, as it were, of black men's struggles? And I think not.
That is a very, very significant and important question. I mean, the perplexity of that question is mind-boggling because he stated, should black women suffer their happiness, for the struggles of black men? And what they're going to get into is, one, at an educational level, then two, at an income level. Should black women struggle and sacrifice and date down to men who are not at their same educational level and or same at their financial level?
What is that?
I think not.
Okay, what's that sacrifice necessarily when we're talking about, and I asked you this question yesterday, is it always marrying down if the person you're marrying doesn't make as much money or have the same level of education? Could be a good guy.
Yeah. He could be a good guy, and lots of relationships work across classes. That's true. But it's also the case that for everyone, not simply for the women, but for the men as well.
Now, I wanted to just point this one thing out. He stated that relationships do work across classes, but because of the times that we live in and certain perspective and certain agendas have been pushed, whether it be by social media and, of course, politics, this is grading the divide between black men and women, because the only thing you have heard in the past 2 years, family, is how much money does he make? What education does he have? What is, essentially black men bringing to the table, because black women are the table. And again, this is not to be divisive against our black women. This is to point out some stereotypical racial tropes and actual evidence of the cause and effect of the stance and the situation that we are in today as a people. See, people like this intellectual guy, I think he graduated from Stanford or he's a Stanford professor. No one, again, is sticking to the root cause. Okay, there's a root cause for every issue in the world. There's a root cause for it. And again, this is not to excuse black men or give black men excuses for not being in their bag, for not doing the very best that they can. But there are some significant issues that must be addressed. And I'm not telling black women, oh, you need to take up the toe, you need to pull these black men up by their bootstraps. But I want to say this: we are better together, and we should be helping each other out. Because again, nice guys supposedly finish last. But I will tell you this: majority of our beautiful, black, intelligent women will want a nice guy rather than Pookie and Ray Ray.
Having a spouse who is matched to you educationally in terms of your outlook, your aspirations, your experiences, that's a positive thing. So it's actually not a great thing for the wife or the husband if they're in a mismatched relationship.
All right, and we know a lot of conversations were started yesterday because of this topic, and I had one of these conversations at my house with Mrs. Holmes, and one of these things that keeps coming up is how do you, and the word I think my wife used was reprogram, if you will, black women, because you're suggesting they need to be open to dating outside of their race. But, you know, a lot of black women just like brothers. They like a black man.
Right.
So
Right.
if you're just not
Right.
attracted naturally, why have them?
And here's the thing, that's natural. Majority of white women like white men. Majority of Asian women like Asian men, so on and so forth. This is just respect throughout the races, that majority of their women and majority of their men tend to be with their own kind. And this is not only from a racial perspective, but this is also from a cultural perspective. If a black guy grew up in suburban America and he went to a majority white school, it doesn't shock me that he's now married to a white woman. Okay? But it does shock me when I see a black guy grow up in a black neighborhood, goes to a HBCU and ends up with a white woman. That's shocking for me because his whole entire life, he's had a black experience. His mother is black, his father is black, his sisters are black, the people he went to school were black. So yeah, that's a different, it's a shocking revelation for me to understand that dynamic at that level versus people who grew up in a predominantly white area.
Give up on finding a black man.
Right, that's a great question. And the issue, the way I think of that is that women have been asked to carry a great load. Black women shoulder a lot of the burden, in short, of black men's struggles. And I am asking women to put the burden down. Many women think that they're attracted to black men. They are attracted to black men. But attraction itself is complicated. And one of the things...
Okay, a lot of times when we listen to these intellectual hopefuls, he said, a lot of black women believe that they're attracted to black men. Then he says, oh, a lot of black women are attracted to black men. I mean, again, of course, I'm biased with this particular gentleman. I'm actually leaning towards with the CNN host. Again, this video is very old. But this guy put a book out, Is Marriage for White People? Okay, fathering the divide between black men and women and who our beautiful black sisters should marry. Okay, and again, majority of black women, according to the statistics, I didn't go around and ask a million black women, but according to the statistics, majority of black women want to marry a black man. But there's not a lot of black men available according to social norms of what he should have obtained or what he should have made or what he has when it comes to monetary value, home ownership, degrees, certifications, licenses, and skills.
That I discovered in the course of writing this book is that there's a whole host of fears and desires and anxieties that animate black women's attraction to black men.
Okay, and on that, though, I got another question from a viewer. Judy sent in and said, well, it sounds like you're saying, why should black women give up the good fight? You know, you're not telling them to take on a project of fixing a man necessarily, but why just give up on black men?
Right, that is another great question. I actually am asking black women to give up the good fight because the fight hasn't been successful. The fight has not been successful. This is what a friend of mine, Carolyn Edgar, calls a Negro Improvement Project. which is what a lot of black women undertake, and often the results are not so great. So the strategy has been counterproductive. It doesn't help African Americans for us to have black men and black women locked in bad relationships and raising children in households where the parents quarrel and ultimately divorce.
Well,
that's not a win for anyone.
It is law professor Ralph Richard Banks. The book is called Is Marriage for White People? I think it went on sale on the 2nd this week.
Unbelievable.
It started a conversation that I'm sure will continue.
Okay, so first and foremost, family, I don't want to get into a narrative that I am putting on the cape for black men to continue to do bad, for black men or black women to settle for the lesser of the sex. I'm not stating that. Do I believe in that called NIP, NIP, Negro Improvement Project, meaning that black women are now going to pull black men up? Am I an advocate for that? I don't know. I'm being very neutral here because I don't really know my stance on this. See, a lot of times you get people on YouTube and they have these discussions and they always have the solutions. They always have the answers. Now, a lot of our women tend to be traditionalists, right? Because they're going off of the social media norms that a man should be paying all the bills, a man should be the protector of the home, and the women should be, barefoot, pregnant, making lunch and dinner. Okay, and the guy takes breakfast at home. But this hasn't been the case. This hasn't worked for us for quite some time because, in reality, family, black women have always been a significant percentage of women in the workforce, okay? And black men as well. So when we look at these significant differences, we have to go to the root cause. So let's go there. And again, this is not to excuse black men of what they should be doing to be a viable candidate and mate for our black women who are on their grind and who are in their bag. This is not for that. In the era of mass incarceration in the U.S. beginning in 1970, the incarceration rate increased by 400% between 1970 and 2000, resulting in the highest incarceration rate in the world. The prison population grew 500% since 1973. Till today, almost 2 million people are incarcerated in the U.S., disproportionately black Americans. And we know it's disproportionately black American men. Let's move on. In 1970, the era of mass incarceration began. This growth in the nation's prison population was a deliberate policy. Now, when we look at the decline of marriage between black men and black women, and we take in toll, when mass incarceration occurred, thank you, Joe Biden. I hope you guys don't vote for that white supremacist again. But anyway, mass incarceration occurred in 1970 that disproportionately affected black men. Okay, let's go to the census.gov. Census.gov, federal government site, states that percent never married among those aged 35 and older by sex. And this is from 1890 to 2010. And I want you guys to really home in on 1970. The red squares are representing black men and the purple line is representing black women. Do you see how white men and white women primarily stayed the same? There was an uptick in the 2000s, kind of the age of social media, but our decline of black marriage happened in 1970. That was the starting point of the decline of the black nuclear family. That was the starting point of disproportionately and socioeconomic disparities within black men and women, was mass incarceration. So when you guys are tuning in to some of the old Kevin Samuels videos, and then, the counter narrative, the fresh and fits, and all of these people talking about relationship, these social media platforms are majority black. We either be Black American or Caribbean or African or even those from the UK. All of these gender divide between black men and black women have been very, very divisive. And the only thing it's doing is continue to increase the wedge between our two people. And I'm showing you where it all started. Mass incarceration started in 1970 and ended 30 years later in 2000. And I want you to show where it first started the decline of the Black nuclear family in the 1970s and took off in 1980 all the way up to 2010. 2005, 2000, so to speak. But even to this day, we still have these very divisive conversations where we're putting Black men on trial of what they have not been doing and what they should be doing.
Forth, which do not advantage the Black woman, and how much that can impact Black men turning away from us.
It can impact both Black men turning away from Black women and Black women turning away from Black men. You know, we're just getting to, I guess, a term where being dark is in style now. And I hate to use in style, but you know, for a long time, light skin was okay. Oh, light skin man, that was the thing that was popping.
Well, we always had Morris Chestnut. I mean, you know, we've always loved him.
Black women, for the most part, prefer dark-skinned Black men. They are the preference in the community. So I don't understand this notion about Black women having a problem with Black men's skin and
well, I think it does go in and out of style. I mean, comedians always joke about it. Light skin is in. Go ahead, Justin. Finish your point.
We're systemically affected by all of these things. It comes down to who controls media. We're not the ones. Black men nor Black women are controlling mainstream media in mass. When it comes down to education, who's inside the history books, who you want to be, who do you see as being valuable? So we're all being brainwashed at times.
But you know what, Justin? Black men do control their own standards.
Okay, the thing about what the brother is stating, I think they're bypassing some of the things he's stating. He's saying there has been a social media push of the divide between Black men and Black women, and then he's also kind of hinting at some of the disparities, but they look right past that. My thing is, let's have a healthy conversation. We can talk about the issues, we can talk about the problems, but when does the conversation turn to solutions?
Stand-up comedy, and there's always jokes about women's weaves and Black women's bodies, policing our hair, policing our butts, and like, you know, I don't know that that's really super helpful.
Okay, and again, family, I swear I'm not trying to be divisive in any way or form. But she was talking about Black women's weave and Black women's hair and eyelashes and nails and etc. Don't forget, a lot of this social gender divide, from my recollection, occurred within Black women first. And what I mean by songs like I Don't Want No Strub, You Should Have Married and Put a Ring on It. A lot of these songs, a lot of the music pushed the divide initially. A lot of people are not understanding the early 90s. I mean, at that point in time, we wasn't even married, at a 50% rate. I think even now, Black men and women are only married at a 35 to 30% rate, where all other races are married to their own people, essentially, and building. So when we look at this, and again, they're Black soul, Fox soul, Jesus Christ. Fox soul sometimes feels like an anti-Black male platform, okay? And that's just my bias with that. I am trying to encourage Black men and women to be together, not to be separate. And I'm not stating that you should accept people in a condition that is not advantageous for your situation. But in my opinion, if a Black man is not making $100,000, if a Black man is not making $80,000, he's a good dude. He on his grind. He's trying to better himself. And you see that and you're attracted to him. And maybe you're a white collar executive and you're a Black woman, but you are attracted to this Black man. And when you sit down and speak to him, maybe his vocabulary, his vernacular, his lexicon is not at the same level, but you see potential. A lot of times people say, oh, you shouldn't really marry on potential. Then what should you marry on? What should you marry on? Everyone is constantly evolving, especially if people are working on themselves. My wife and I, we're still working on ourselves. So when I look at these things, family, these are divisive narratives and perspective that's being pushed to continue to divide Black men and women. We have so many beautiful Black women who are single moms or who have never been married, who have never had kids, who actually wanted to be married. But because of these social barriers that have been in place psychologically, they just can't get past dating a man that they see beneath them, dating a man who makes less than them, dating a man who doesn't have a house because they have a house. Again, family, and I'm gonna beat the drum on this all year long. We are better together.
Black women aren't the only one with weaves and Brazilian butt lifts.
But do black
Ho. Yeah. There's some sisters. Calm down, lady. Calm down. There are some black sisters going to the DR and going to other places to get some Brazilian butt lifts. But for majority of our black women, they don't need butt lifts. They are naturally built like that. Lord have mercy.
do black comedians not make jokes about white women? And then also similar to music
Disparaging their looks? No,
No, they don't. It's very disingenuous. But it's
similar to music industry, you may have an artist that speaks about killing one another, but there's a lot of artists who talk about great things and helping and building the community. But who gets on the radio? Who gets on the television? And so, yes, there are those who are going to have a negative impact and have their negative things to say. But even more so, who's putting the dollars behind it to say, okay, this is what we want to put the spotlight on. It's much bigger than just us.
Now, let me play Angel's Advocate here. The sister did say something. They state when comedians get up and they're speaking about black women, it's always personal. It's always something physical. And when they're speaking about other races, they're not speaking about things that are physical to their women, right? That was a really good point, which is true. I do agree with that. But now he's pushing a narrative that where is the money coming from and what's being highlighted? Again, this is not an agenda for black men. Black men just don't wake up and say, you know what, I'm gonna put down my beautiful black sisters, even though they're doing educationally better than us, they're doing economically better than us, they have a higher rate of home ownership, but I'm gonna figure out something to combat and counter all the divisive and negative things they're saying about black men. No, these are really small capsules that has been funded by certain groups to push an agenda to further divide black men and women. And what does that occur? There are some black men and women out there just for the bag. They understand that negativity drives the internet. Negativity drives social media. People are more in tune to listen to negativity than positivity. Even in this video, because I'm trying to push black men and women together and understand their socioeconomic disparities and disproportionate effects that we've had throughout history. People don't want to listen to that. They rather have me down the black woman. They rather have me down the black man. That won't happen today because, listen, before we get into this, hold on.
Dr. Cheryl Giudice, you're a sociologist. How does this imaging of black women and the imaging of the relationships between black men and black women, how is it impacting our actual real life relationships?
Well, I'll probably start a whole nother controversial conversation when I say the root of this is low self-esteem. When you look at everything in this society from the very beginning has privileged whiteness in any way, shape, or form. So consequently, if you don't meet those standards, what winds up happening is that you are not put on the same pedestal as white women are. So as a result, I feel that many black women have internalized these issues and as a result do suffer from low self-esteem. Go back so many years ago, I'm thinking it's the 1960s, when there was this doll study that was done. And the psychologists discovered that children, young black girls as young as 4 or 5 years old, when asked to choose a doll that they thought was pretty or the most desirable, the first thing they did was choose the white doll. And that's recognizing that, of course, that they did not look like the white doll and they would get very upset. But of course, you know, some people have later said that that's because there weren't that many black dolls available for young girls to play with. And they tried to redo the study later on. Later on, when the study was redone, still there was a decided preference for the white dolls, even among the black females.
And I do think that.
Wow. That's a mouthful, family, that we have to really comb through and understand. Because now, before we get into this, let's make one thing crystal clear. And again, I have to keep pointing this out. This conversation is not about division or discouraging interracial dating. I can care less. I'm not Dr. Umar, but I do prefer that we stay together because we're better together, right? There's just a lot of things that we mesh well together. It's about this is about celebrating the strength and resilience of Black families, recognizing the historical, economic, and social economic and cultural benefit that comes with it. History tells a powerful tale. Our ancestors fought against unimaginable odds to preserve family ties during the darkest days of slavery. Family was not just a support system, it was an act of resistance. Today, building Black families is a continuation of that legacy. This is where I'm at. This is my conjecture. A defiance against systematic challenges. Because economically, we've seen strides made by Black women in education and home ownership. However, this shouldn't be a deterrent to Black men. Instead, it's an opportunity to come together and leverage each other's strength. Okay, imagine economic power that we could wield if we unite our efforts. Think about that. Just imagine the economic power we could obtain if we unite our efforts, pool together our resources, and create a financial powerhouse for generations to come. And of course, the present generation, because from a social economic perspective, the unity of Black families creates a stable environment for children. Let me say that again. From a social economic perspective, the unity of Black families creates a stable environment for children. You see, we have now, I remember when at a high rate, especially back in the 90s and early 2000s, where Black men really were stepping out and dating outside their race. So we had a lot of mixed children, okay? And there was a time where mixed children were still stating, I'm Black. My father's Black, I'm Black. My mother's Black, I'm Black. Now we have a new age of Generation Y and Generation Z, like a mix. So they tend not to lean one way or another, even though majority of these kids who are mixed look predominantly Black. Because what we have to understand is fostering a sense of identity and belonging when we're looking at ourselves in the mirror. It provides a foundation for us to navigate the world with resiliency, knowing that we have a strong support system at home, building the Black family. Because let's talk about culture, right? We have shaped our experiences, our traditions, our values. These are threads that weave the beautiful tapestry of our Black culture. Marrying within our community ensures that the preservation and continuation of these rich traditions, passing them down to future generations. See, if we continue to marry outside of our race at the current rate, there will be no Black culture. If every other race is marrying their own race at a high percentage of Black people, think about it. Asians majority marry Asians, Hispanics majority marry Hispanics, whites majority marry whites. But when it comes to Black folk, we don't majority marry each other when it comes to the population of single Black men and single Black females. I tell you this, I acknowledge that Black women have made remarkable strides in education and home ownership. But still, the goal here is not to compete, but to complement each other. Black men should not be competing against Black women. Black women should not be competing against Black men. Rather, we should be complementing each other. We shouldn't be looking to Black men as a money sign. How much money can you give me? Can you take me shopping? How much money do you have? What type of car do you have? Do you have a penthouse? Do you have a house? Everything is monetary money, monetary value, monetary money, currency money. Everything is money. This is why we are separated. This is why we are divided. It is not simply because Black men are not making enough money. No, there's other hands at play. There's other hands at play. Who profits from Black men and women being separate? And I know some of you are like, oh God, here we go. He's gonna say white supremacy, racism, and discrimination. And indeed, you're right. See, when Black women are single mothers, their net worth goes significantly down. Some of them have to quit their jobs and depend on social services. Some of them are now doing worse than they were before because they have to pay for childcare, because a lot of Black men, unfortunately, don't have the means to pay child support. Okay, and again, this is not to excuse Black men. If you're laying down with a woman, you should know the outcome that may occur if she becomes pregnant. You have to understand your responsibilities. But when you start to factor in mass incarceration, you start to factor in education disparities, you factor in unemployment disparities, you factor in that Black men are the most homeless, there's a lot of disproportionate disparities that's affecting Black people in general, but mostly Black men. So I tell you, the goal here is not to compete, but to complement each other and state that we are better together, recognizing and celebrating the achievements of our beautiful Black women is crucial. It's crucial. Yeah. We shouldn't be like, oh, well, yeah, you guys are the most educated, but you're the most in debt. Why are Black women the most in debt? Because they tend to have to take care of children by themselves with no significant financial support. And I don't blame the Black man for this. Guess who I blame? I blame Black men and Black women, because I believe in a sense of pro-responsibility. When you see a lot of these women walking around with 4 and 5 children, I want you to really look at her and look at her character. That's what I want you to do. Martin Luther King said, judge people based upon their character. Then I want you to look at that Black man who she had 1 or 2 children with that are no longer with their children, who is trying to avoid paying child support by not getting a job and working under the table. Yeah. I want you to look at these people, look at their character. Because what I start to realize is women who have went off and went to college and got their degrees and started their career in corporate America, they tend not to have a lot of children. They tend not to have a lot of children because they are not dealing with Pookie and Ray Ray and Dusty dudes. No. They tend not to do that. See, it's about being pro-responsible, because that woman is responsible for the man she sleeps with. That man is responsible for the woman he sleeps with. Why am I saying that? Because when we see a lot of these children that are occurring out of wedlock, a lot of these children who are not being taken care of by their significant other, mostly not being taken care of by the Black man, look at the character of that Black man. Look at the character of that Black woman. See, nobody wants to share the guilt. Nobody wants to share the guilt. No one wants to say, well, in terms of responsibility, she should know that Dirk from around the corner already have 2 kids by 2 different women. But because Dirk is so fine and he got the swag and he on fleek, I don't know the words they're using today, so excuse me. He on fleek, he lit, he's all of these things. I want to sleep with him. Why? We asking ourselves these questions because Black love is a powerful force. It's the very cornerstone for Black empowerment. How can we preach Black empowerment without preaching about Black families, by creating and building Black families. See, I'm kind of getting away from the whole traditionalist that Black men should be out here and working and doing this, that, and the other. Yeah. That's what a man's supposed to do. I'm not anti-man and what the traditionalists are saying, but if that is not the case, if Keisha is bringing in $110,000 and Michael is bringing in $40,000, we make $150,000 together. Then some of you are going to say, well, there's a particular lifestyle, Blacklogic, there's a particular lifestyle that when he marries that Black woman, that he's going to encounter. And then when she gets pregnant, she's going to have to take a break from that job. And how is $40,000 going to suffice an income of $110,000? And I'm like, it won't. But just like other cultures, and as we once did, we plan for those things. Again, for every argument there's a solution. For every problem, there is a solution. Building families is just not a personal choice. It's a revolutionary act that contributes to the overall upliftment of our community. Yes, Black men should be out there working hard. Yes, Black men should be trying to continue to bring in significant amounts of money to support the family. And yes, Black men and women should be together. I'm not telling our beautiful Black sisters to accept this any old thing, but understand the economic and social disparities that we both go through. That's what I'm stating. The challenges. The challenging facing Black men and the case for action. Let's move down here. Education. In 2019, hold on. 28% of Black men ages 25 to 29 had a bachelor's degree or higher compared to 30% of Black women. So this dates back quite some time. Compared to 30% of Black women, over 40% of white men, and nearly half of white women, according to National Center of Education Statistics. Young Black men are poorly served by schools. And we see dark blue represented for Black men and light blue represented for Black women compared to their white counterparts. And we see when it comes to associate's degree, bachelor's degree, and master's degree, Black women have a higher number that they're obtaining degrees than Black men. I just want you guys to ponder on that very quickly. I want you guys to really, really ponder on that. We're not looking at these social disparities the way we should, especially not the way I see things. Because when I look at things, I try to look at things very pro-Black. I try to look at things very, very pro-Black. Believe it or not, this is how I look at things. Maybe you don't look at things like this. Maybe you don't. Listen, no other woman beside me will look better than a beautiful Black wife. Holler at your boy. Let me say that again. No other woman beside me, except for a Black woman, will look good with me. That's all I'm stating. Let me move on before I start preaching here, because, woo, Lord have mercy. According to the Bureau of Justice Statistics, 1,800 Black men per 100,000 were held in state or federal prison in the U.S. in 2021. This number doesn't include Black people in county jails or pretrial confinement. Black men are especially to be in prison. By 2002, around 12% of Black men in their 20s were in prison and in jail. Okay? States here, millions of Black women are exposed to the harmful effects of mass incarceration during their lifetime. Whether they experience imprisonment personally or they have an incarcerated loved one, contact with the system is a significant stressor that undermines the long-term health of mothers and their children. See, a lot of times people are like, oh, well, you messing with those criminals out there, you messing with. Listen, Black men are the most exonerated group in America. Black men are the most exonerated group in America. So what does that tell you? Not every black man in jail was a criminal, but since they deemed and found him guilty by many means, things being planted, wrong associations, RICO trials, what else? Identifying eyewitnesses, because usually eyewitnesses are wrong. So when we look at these things, we can't just blame it on dusty dudes and Pookies and Ray Rays. We can't do that because there's a significant number of black men in jail who are innocent. Who are in jail and innocent. Mass incarceration affects millions of black women and children. It states right here, give me a second. Perhaps unsurprisingly, the spike in female incarceration has disproportionately affected black women, especially young black women. While black women overall are twice as likely to be in prison as their white counterparts, black women ages 18 and 19 are 3 times more likely to be in prison than their white counterparts. If current incarceration trends continue, 1 in 18 black women will be in prison at some point in their lifetime. At some point of time in their lifetime, 1 in 18 black women will be in prison at some point in their lifetime. Now let's compare that to black men. Mass incarceration. This is from the ACLU. I tend not to get information from them, but for this one, this was very significant. Not everyone is treated equally in the criminal justice system. Racial bias keeps more people or black people in prison and on probation than ever before. 1 out of every 3 black boys born today can expect to go to prison in his lifetime. 1 out of every 3 black boys today can expect to go to prison in his lifetime. That means that if my son, or my sons rather, will either be the 27-year-old, the 24-year-old, or the 12-year-old, one of them is going to prison. One of them is going to jail, according to the statistics. Now, hopefully we can keep them out of jail. All of them are productive. One is a professional UFC fighter. Another one is a college graduate. And the 12-year-old, he's still in middle school, but he's part of the AVID program, which is like DECO or the Honor Society or something like that. So yeah, we're trying to raise some upstanding, handsome, strong black men to fare with our beautiful, intelligent black women of this age. That's what we're trying to do in this household. We're trying to encourage black love. Now, granted, if you like dating white men, if you like dating white women, go ahead, have your fun. Yeah, do that. But understand this. Not only from a racial perspective, but from a cultural perspective. That's where I want your mind is. And from a very revolutionary perspective, okay? I'm gonna let you come up with your own end state there. Racial discrimination in housing, sentencing, and policing frequently explains why data shows stark disproportionalities in just environment for black people. The research below goes into more detail as to how and why black people are overrepresented in jails, prison, and forms of punishment. So we look at the key statistics here. Percent of black Americans in the US population. We know this number is false. We're looking around more like 15%. Percent of people in prison or jail who are black, 37%. That's more than 1/3 of the prison population are black people. And majority of them are black men. Prison incarceration, okay, nope, skipping that one. Percent of people serving life and life without parole or virtual life sentences who are black, 48%. So I want you to think about that. And this has to do with a lot of math and a lot of percentages, but for you mathematicians out there, 15% of the population, out of 15%, 37% are in jail. And out of that 37% that are in jail, 48% of that 37% are in jail for life without parole. Now look at the disparities here. Arrest rate for blacks versus white Americans. Blacks, 6,109 versus whites, 2,795 per 100,000. That is literally two-thirds more than white people. 3 times the amount, rather. 3 times the amount. Almost 3 times the amount black people are going to jail versus whites. Number of arrests for black Americans in 2018, 2.8 million people have been arrested. And this is in 2018. Percent of black people on probation or parole who are black, 30%. So as I started off, family, we have to factor in the root cause of the situation that black people are in, especially when we're talking about black men. Because the question is this: are black women the answer? Are black women the answer? That's the question I have for you. Are black women the answer? Now, looking at some Pew Research here, let me blow this up for you guys. It states that the analysis found a statistically significant difference between the racial composition of local communities and their jail populations. In jurisdictions where black people made up smaller shares of the general population, black people were more likely to be overrepresented in jail. And you know what they keep leaving out? I usually have to pop up another statistics, is that a large portion of black people who are in jail are innocent. Because again, we have the highest rate of people being exonerated. You've seen all the black men who've been in jail for 20 and 30 and 40 and 50 years who were innocent. These were valuable black men who possibly would have been married to a black woman. Overrepresentation of black individuals in jail is long-standing for at least the past 2 decades. Black people have made up more than a third of jail populations nationally, despite constituting only about 14%. You see how the last one said 13, this one saying 14, but the current number is 15, by the way. 14% of the general population. However, reporting shows that although the number of black and white people held in jail fell significantly between 2019 and 2020, don't forget, family, mass incarceration ended in 2020, and that is why you see a significant decrease, okay? The decrease was greater for white people than black people, even though both of them failed, but the significant decrease was for white people, not for black people, okay? Let me move on. Since the start of the pandemic, jail population increased more for black people than they have for white people, okay? And we looked at 0.4 versus 8%. And family, you may say, oh, that's not really a large significant number. We're talking about 1 million people, family, in that 8%. Okay, that is what we're referring to. We're talking about damn near 1 million people going to jail based upon these numbers. Then they also states here that black people were 4 times as likely as their white peers to be sent to jail. Average jail admissions per 1,000 residents by race in 2022. 100 more so than whites. So when we're not giving excuses for black men, we're not giving excuses for black people in general. We're just giving you the truth. We're just giving you the statistics. See, we can get all emotional and we can have these tirades and these arguments and these disputes and these debates back and forth, but it doesn't solve the problem. If black women, majority of black women, not all, okay, we got some people who like to swirl. That's fine. Do your thing. Have fun. But for those who want to marry black, understand what has occurred to our people. Understand in the current times that these divides are not just being pushed by you or by the black man or by you or the black woman. It's being pushed by people who are funding these agendas and putting these topics to the forefront. That's where these things are being pushed. Black people most likely to be held in jail for more than 3 months. A shared individual released in 2021 and 2022 who spent over 90 days in jail. Look at this. Black versus white. Let's move on. Black marriage in America. Okay, let me decrease it so you can see everything here. It says over the last few decades, let me see if I can push this over some. There we go. Over the last few decades, marriage has been a declining institution among all Americans, and this decline is even more evident in the Black community. In 2020, only 30% of Black Americans were married compared to 48% of all other Americans. Half, 50% of Black Americans have never been married compared to 34% of all Americans. This is one of the reasons, okay? This is one of the reasons, not the sole reason, family. This is one of the reasons why we continue to be part of the poverty class. Yeah, we have the system of white supremacy, discrimination, bias. We have all those things working against us. But us being separated from one another contributes to this status that we're currently in. After viewing the available data, we can see that although fewer Black women are now married, more Black women than Black men have been married at least once. This is because a higher percentage of Black women are divorced and widowed than men. Also in 2020, just under half or 48% of Black women had never been married, which is up from 44% in 2008. Wow. There's a lot of single people out here, family, and we are struggling. See, here's the thing. We want to struggle together, but we don't want to build together. You remember the thing that our women used to say, I can do bad all by myself. No. We're doing bad together. We're just not together. I'm doing bad over here by myself. You're doing bad over there by yourself. Now, granted, if we come together, I promise you, boo-boo, that we'll be doing a lot better. I promise you that. Black marital status. When it comes to Black men, 33%, Black women, 27%. This is married. There's more married Black men than they are married Black women. I'm gonna let the cat out the bag. I see my brother Jermaine Anderson, Queen Chief of Three Kings, Bulls fan. Nice to see you gentlemen in here. Ladies, if you're watching, nice to see you beautiful ladies in here as well. I've been married 3 times. I was going to continue to find me a beautiful Black intelligent woman. I didn't care if she had a degree. I just had a preference. That's all I had, a preference. And my preference is very, very simple. Someone nice, easy to talk to, and someone I get along with. Of course, there was some very nuanced things, but they wasn't really that big. Let me tell you something. When I met my wife, my wife was like, oh, there's a lot of beautiful Black women out here that, that have the things that you want. Just you. I can only find you. I've been married 3 times, baby, and you're the one who fit the mold. You're the one who fit the mold. Yeah, don't lie to me. She couldn't lie to me. She couldn't tell me. Because I'm looking at right here. And here's the thing. A lot of Black women, I think this started to occur in 2021, where there was this Black women who just wanted to have babies by Black men. They wanted a Black child. That's cool, right? But when you have a child, it can either be a female or male. And because you really didn't want to have a relationship with that male, but you want to have his baby because maybe you didn't see him as a father figure. Now, as a Black woman, you are raising a Black male. So my thing is, I'm not trying to have women judge men based upon their income level. I wish that we all can judge one another by our character versus the money amount. Is that a harmful ask? for us to be together. And then when it comes to never married, 52% of black men never been married and 48% of black women never been married. But when it comes to the US altogether, 34%. Employment. Oh yeah, we have to speak about deployment. We want to speak about this because he needs to be 6 feet. And I'm just joking, ladies. That's not how you guys speak. My wife always get on me when I'm talking about he gotta be 6 feet, he gotta be 6 foot tall, and he have to have a 6-pack. And I keep telling people, I got a 1-pack. It's pretty solid. It's pretty solid. 1-pack is pretty good. Okay. And I'm not 6 feet, I'm about 5'10" and a half, but I tell people I'm 5'11", okay? And I look tall on camera because I put the camera, okay, I won't tell you all that. I won't tell you all that. I'll just show you. You see how I look taller? I'm trolling myself. But anyway, Black American employment, ages 25 to 64. Black men, 66%. Okay, this is employed, versus Black women, 70%. So even the Black women are more employed than the Black men. Then it says not in labor force. 27% of Black men are not in the labor force, and 25% of Black women not in the labor force. Unemployed, 6%. So Black men are more unemployed than Black women. So there's all these disparities. So some would like to believe that Black men are just stupid, lazy, and don't want to do nothing and want to depend on Black women. Because I've seen the videos from 2021, especially in 22 and 23. I've seen all the videos of all the divisiveness within our race, of dividing one from another. That Black women have this and Black women have that, and Black men should be doing this and Black men should be doing that. And then Black men like, oh, what about her nails? What about her eyelashes? What about her body? Listen, we don't have to have these conversations. We don't. We don't have to have these conversations, not at all. Because when I look at it, we're doing bad all by ourselves. But I tell you, if we come together, we'll do a lot better. Here's the thing, gentlemen. If you're not a sociologist, if you're not a relationship expert, and women are asking, then we don't have to comment on it. If you don't want a woman who appears to be overweight, overfat, and obese, then you don't have to date her. You don't have to approach her, and you sure don't have to talk about her. But let's take, for instance, you meet a beautiful Black woman who's overweight, and she's struggling with her weight, but she has the encouragement and motivation to go out and lose it. Why not give her a chance and help her along the way? See, whatever happened to supporting and assisting one another? What if a beautiful Black sister who is successful meet a skilled laborer? Maybe he's bringing in 50, 60,000, and maybe you work in corporate America, as they stated, and you're making anywhere from, let's say, $80,000 to $120,000. What's wrong with you guys entering into a relationship and getting married? I don't know. I'm asking for a friend. In 2017, about 73% of Black men ages 25 to 64 were in the labor force, including 66% who were employed. Let's talk about the occupations now. Black women have made the greatest strides recently. In 2017, 35% of Black women have jobs in management, business, science, and arts occupations, up from 33% in 2011 compared to 24%. Okay, they are outnumbering Black men by 11% of employed Black men. As a matter of fact, 65% of working Black women held white-collar occupations compared to 42% of Black men. These are some of the disparities that everyone is seeing. Black women are saying, well, on my job, I work for a law firm, or I work for a marketing firm, and it's just like there's really like no Black men around. And family, have we factored in the significant amount of Black men who are part of the LGBTQ community? So we have to make all of these factors. We have to factor in the homeless population. We have to factor in the mass incarceration population. And also in the mass incarceration population, we have to factor in those Black people who are on trial to be exonerated, who have been exonerated, who are probably not healthy candidates because they've been in jail 20, 30 years. Because listen, you can't expect for a Black man to be exonerated after 20, 30 years and him come out and be an upstanding citizen of society. He's been incarcerated for the past 2 or 3 decades. He's behind the power curve on every imaginable scale. So are they valuable candidates? Civil employed population 16 and over. It says men, civilized employed population. And we're just looking at the different percentages that we have here. And then last but not least, college and university, right? And this is blackdemographics.com. And I want you guys to always note the source. They're not just coming up with these numbers. These sources are from the United States Department of Education, National Center of Education Statistics, and U.S. Department of Justice Office. And if you go back, a lot of these are coming from the censusbureau.gov when we're looking at the different numbers here, like this one, U.S. Census Bureau.gov. So these are coming from reputable sources. They're not just coming up with these figures. Black men in college and university, over 1 million compared to Black men in prison, 200,000 less than 1 million. But that's a significant amount of Black men in prison that could be with Black women. Now, one thing I wanted to point out here, this is not to deny the fact that Black men are not overrepresented in jail. However, it is to refute the notion that the so-called school to prison pipeline is larger than the school to college pipeline, which is simply not true. Now, let's get into the degrees. We already know that our beautiful Black women have more degrees than our handsome, upstanding Black men. But a lot of us do not want to look at the evidence. A lot of us do not want to look at the root cause of the situations that we are in. But I tend to do so. I tend to counter, refute, retract, contradict everything to keep Black men and women separated. Now, again, everybody has their preference, and that's your choice, and I'm not demonizing that. I'm not being divisive on that. You do what you want to do. But I truly think not only are Black men an endangered species, but the Black family is an endangered species. When I'm out with my wife, oh man, I love to see Black people together, having a good time. There's no debauchery. I just love to see Black people doing well, living well, having fun, having a good time with Black people. This is not anti-white. This is not anti-Asian. Because guess what? They have functions all the time. And they have a good old time. And it's okay when they do it, but it's a problem when we do it. I love to see it. I just love to see it, family. So with that being said, you guys have a great and wonderful Friday. And just know, there is an upstanding, intelligent Black man for you. He may not be what social media wants him to be, but he exists. And gentlemen, there's a beautiful, intelligent Black woman waiting for you.